Yes, birds are real. And there's a real big threat facing this real big bird. The California Condor, already the most endangered species in North America, is on the brink of extinction. Pandemic is over, right? Well, numbers show not really, but emergencies and mandates being lifted say sort of. And if you've been carrying that vaccine card around, do you still need to? Snow on the 13th of April. If you think we're having a good snowpack this year, it's nothing like it was nearly 30 years ago. And the rivers reflect that. Several miles south of downtown Boise, you'll find the center of the world when it comes to endangered bird preservation. The World Center for Birds of Prey. You know, it started in the 80s with peregrine falcons and raptors, but by the early 90s, they turned their attention to the California condor. Condors battled lead poisoning for years, and in more recent years, that extinction endgame has been avoided because of the quick work being done by the World Center of Birds of Prey and other conservation groups. There's a new problem now. A pandemic, so to speak, of bird flu is wiping out California condors. And to stop it, the World Center for Birds of Prey say they need all the help they can get. They told their story to Joe Paris.
The California condor can be traced back thousands and thousands of years. The species survived the last ice age, survived narrow extinction in the 80s, and can even be found on official American currency. But now the California condors face a new problem, an emergency situation.
Well, we're currently dealing with an outbreak of HPAI, which is avian influenza.
Tim Houck is the Condor Program Director for the Peregrine Fund, based in Boise, Idaho. Their mission is to conserve birds of prey around the globe. The California condor is a species the team has worked with for decades. They're trying to save them. Avian flu is the latest battle.
So it's been found within our population, and we've since recovered birds that have died from HPAI, and we're currently on the ground trying our best to monitor individuals, collect birds that have passed, and get them sent off for necropsies so we can find out what the cause of death was. And most of these have actually come back as avian influenza.
The team in Boise hosts a California condor breeding program to help restore the population of a species that has been decimated in recent decades. The goal is to get condors back into natural habitats while being observed. A flu outbreak in the Arizona-Utah habitat threatens that work, possibly compromising years of conservation.
That's one of the difficult parts of this disease, is that there's not a whole lot that you can do once it's spreading within your species, but we can do some things, and we're taking action to the best of our ability on the ground, in the field. And so one of the things we're doing is we've stopped feeding young birds or managing the population through our management site, where we often provide proffered food. So we're going to try to eliminate any possibility of congregation, because just like the flu in humans, we wouldn't want to all sit around a dinner table with our family if we knew somebody had the flu. We wouldn't want the same for condors. So as much as they can disperse, that's the best thing for them right now. They're an incredibly social species, so they like to congregate. They feed together, they roost together. So one of the difficult parts of the biology of the species as it relates to avian influenza.
They need support to navigate the emergency effort. A donation page is now set up on the Peregrine Fund's website to help save the condors.
We're using funds to try to keep the field team safe. This is a virus that can be potentially harmful to humans in very rare cases. So we want to make sure that we have the appropriate PPE in the field for our field crews. We're also using funds for volunteers on the front lines, travel costs, lodging, things like that, other equipment that we need to get the work done in the field. And of course, medical treatment for the birds that we're actually able to capture. So all of those things are paramount right now for the success of the species and the future of the species. So all boots are on the ground, all hands on deck.
With that said, work in Boise is as important as ever.
The staff up in Boise there at the Peregrine Fund, we have the largest captive breeding flock, which I believe is just over 50 birds. Pretty incredible stuff. And those birds are going to be so crucial in moving forward through something like this. That genetic stock is extremely important, and they're going to help us be able to put more birds out through captive breeding into the wild.
Populations of the condors are actually kept separate. So infections appear to just be in the Utah, Arizona population for right now. But Brian, it's interesting, and I want to be very clear here that the work done here in Boise, that's really the rehab work. It's not like they do the rehab in Boise and then they just say, okay, go fly across Idaho. The population in the Utah, Arizona area, that's one group, and then there are condors in California. But the idea is to make sure that regionally these populations are kind of isolated so there's not crossover.
Right.
For example, so that flu wouldn't go from Arizona, Utah to the California group, which right now it looks like it hasn't.
Okay, so right now everything's kind of isolated the way it should be.
But it's still a very dire battle. And again, as we talked about in the story, they've worked for years and years to bring back this species, and it's faced a lot of problems. And you're saying when you grew up in California, this was textbook material.
Textbook, yeah, that's what we learned about. So glad to see that at least it's being recognized and at least some sort of action is being taken on it. But there are ways to help, and you can find that in this story on our website at ktvb.com. Thanks, Joe. So, did you know the COVID pandemic is over? No, it's really not. Yes, the national emergency is officially over, and the public health emergency will soon follow suit. But if you ask doctors, epidemiologists, global health leaders, those kind of people, not even close. The CDC tracker shows we're still seeing 120,000 cases a day in the United States, which is likely underreported, by the way. Nearly 2,000 people are still being admitted to the hospital every day with a COVID infection, and we're still seeing almost 2,000 COVID deaths a week. But yes, earlier this week, President Biden unceremoniously signed a bill that brought the COVID-19 national emergency to an end after 1,124 days, which brought this question from Rizé. Rizé from Payette asked, since the U.S. government, Biden, CDC, is now stating the COVID-19 pandemic is over, do we need to keep our vaccination passport cards, or can we just throw them away? Well, let me respond to your question, Rizé, with another question. When was the last time you needed to use or show your COVID vaccine card? A week ago, Governor Little made it a law here in Idaho, effective immediately, saying you can no longer be discriminated against for getting or not getting a coronavirus vaccine. And right now, it is only required for non-residents flying into the United States. Most hospitals, health clinics, nursing, and assisted living facilities, they did require it for their staff, but not necessarily for their visitors. And although you were still required to wear a mask should you go to any of those places, that was until yesterday when both St. Luke's and St. Alphonsus health systems lifted their mask mandates in public spaces on their premises. So Rizé, to your question, despite Idaho ending its public health emergency a year ago and President Biden ending the national emergency with the national public health emergency expected to end next month, which will take away the free COVID tests and the free vaccines you're seeing now, that all goes away. The U.S. government, President Biden and the CDC didn't actually declare the pandemic over. And while you may not need a vaccine card anymore, why not just keep it as a memento, I guess? We are continuing to count down the days until KTVB's platinum anniversary coming up in July. And in doing so, we're continuing our dip into the KTVB archive pool of old stories. We did this show back in the 1990s. Remember the 1990s, kids? Well, it was called Exploring Idaho, and it ran from 1993 to 1998. Once a month, it would showcase Idaho's unique beauty and adventure that is out there for everyone to find. 26 years ago this month, in 1997, with snow levels in Idaho's mountains much deeper than we're seeing this year, the crew took a trip to the Snake River to see the Shoshone Falls, the Niagara of the West, in all its glory in one of its biggest runs ever.
The raw power of Shoshone Falls on the Snake River is a sight and sound to behold this spring. Its massive waters impress even locals who have visited the attraction for years.
I don't believe I've ever seen this much water.
Tremendous amount of water.
Awesome, that's all I can think of. Grandchildren say awesome for everything, and this is what they should see.
Awesome indeed, and not yet at its fullest. Still in the early part of spring, the 212-foot Niagara of the West is headed for an all-time record.
Last year was our largest water year, I think, in the last 13 years. Right now we have as much, if not more, than we had last year during peak runoff in June.
With a full month to go before it hits its peak, about 180,000 gallons spill over the edge every second. Now think about it, 180,000 gallons every second of every minute of every hour of every day. And it's only getting bigger.
Well, the force of the water always just scares me.
For visitor Marjorie Stroud, the falls is incredible and intimidating. Watching the water boil to a misty bottom, she can't help but wonder if anyone was ever so unfortunate as to pass over the edge.
I certainly wouldn't want to go over the falls, I'll tell you. No way.
But almost 70 years ago, an adventurous lumberjack by the name of Al Fawcett would. In July of 1929, Fawcett took the spill of a lifetime. His craft was a canvas-covered canoe. He braced it with ribs of spruce, then stuffed it with truck tire inner tubes. At 5 o'clock in the evening, Fawcett slid himself into his craft, zipped the canvas hatch, and was pushed into the current. Fawcett picked up speed, then plunged over the drop. A crowd of 5,000 spectators watched speechless as he fell. When his craft resurfaced in the mist at the bottom, out popped Fawcett with an ear-to-ear grin. His only injury was a broken hand. But others were not so fortunate. In 1882, a ferry was established about 200 yards upriver from the falls. Idaho author Court Conley writes that it takes little imagination to understand why business was never brisk. And history has it, on more than one occasion, the cable broke, sending passengers to a watery grave.
Feel that water almost vibrate you, and it's unreal the amount of force that's behind just a little bit of falling water.
Today, about the only person who comes close to the falling water is Idaho power worker Dennis Brayman.
Underneath here, we have the water that's pouring over the top of us, and right now there's about a foot of water going over the top.
This old concrete spillway was completed in 1907. Back then, it produced enough electricity to power the entire city of Twin Falls. In 1921, a second power plant was added at the base of the falls that doubled the output. Today, the two combined create enough electricity to power only about a third of the growing city of Twin Falls. Idahoans have found other ways to harness this stretch of the Snake River. About 20 miles upriver from Shoshone Falls, Milner Dam puts the magic in Magic Valley.
They call it Magic Valley because it magically bloomed when they put water on it.
Completed in 1904, Milner Dam diverts millions of gallons of water into an extensive canal system. Every year, the water feeds 365,000 acres of thirsty farmland.
The Snake River certainly is the heart of the valley.
Magic Valley farmer and Idaho legislator Doug Jones says the water makes this would-be desert some of the most fertile agricultural ground in the country.
The soil was good, it's good climate, but the water was the magic. It made it come to life.
But there is a trade-off. In midsummer, Milner Dam becomes a turn valve for its downstream companion. And when irrigation is at its peak, scenic Shoshone Falls is reduced to a trickle. So if you want to see the falls at a record high, plan your visit between now and mid-June. It's a sight and sound you won't soon forget.
Spectacular.
This is wonderful. It's the most beautiful it's ever been.
Yeah, very, very impressive.
That was Jennifer Eisenhart, by the way, the reporter during that story. 180,000 gallons per second, you heard her say. To put that in perspective, we measure the speed and volume of the Boise River in cubic feet per second. 180,000 gallons per second is more than 24,000 CFS. Boise River right now is running at 4,400 CFS to kind of give you an idea what that's like. Believe it or not, it was 2 years later, in 1999, when there was absolutely no water run over the Shoshone Falls.
At the Shoshone Falls souvenir shop, Tammy can show you a Shoshone Falls postcard, mug, magnet, or keychain. The one thing she can't show you is Shoshone Falls. Shut off, dried up, almost completely arrested.
I can't run around back and turn it on.
From what I remember was so much water actually caused a mist to come over.
And a rainbow.
And a rainbow, yeah.
Not today.
Not today. Well, John Miller stopped by to see Shoshone Falls not falling in 2001, so 2 years after that drought began, and it lasted for 6 years until 2005. Water only went over the falls for about an hour in June of 2004 to celebrate Twin Falls Centennial. So maybe you're thinking, hey, we have a lot of snow in Idaho's mountains this year. The Snake River has to be ripping right now, right? Not so much. This is a live look right now at Shoshone Falls. After Snowmageddon, the Snake River was sending about 20,000 CFS over the falls by mid-April. 2019, it hit about 10,000 CFS by May, but right now, it's only at 366 cubic feet per second coming over the top of that. Why is it so low, you're probably asking, when the Boise River is running so high right now, 12 times as fast? Well, in that Exploring Idaho story, you heard Jennifer talk about the Milner Dam, which diverts water from the Snake River to irrigate all the farmland in the Magic Valley. We were told today that water is still being diverted upstream to fill all of the reservoirs in the area. And given what we've been through the last few years, they have some deep holes to fill. Idaho Power tells us the 11 major reservoirs on the Snake River above Brownlee Dam, they're only about 56% full right now, just 80% of where they should be this time of year. According to water managers, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, we likely won't see much more water past the Milner Dam this season. And if we do, it won't be until late May or early June. And even then, it likely won't be higher than 2,500 CFS. Just more evidence, one good water year doesn't undo all the string of bad ones we've seen. Oh, those are pretty funny. Those pictures sent in, by the way, to our KTVB Facebook Weather Watchers page, and there were some good ones. And the comments are just as funny. Maybe you woke up this morning thinking it was February 72nd as well. Measurable snowfall across the Treasure Valley this morning, officially an inch out at the Boise Airport, which brings up the question, what's the latest we've seen snow? Measurable snow in Boise. You know, it's not crazy to see snow in April. I mean, just last year we saw half an inch of snow on May 9th. The latest, well, that would be a century earlier. May 22nd, 1922, when we saw a tenth of an inch of snow. You know, we once had 4 inches of snow on May 2nd, 1964. 4 inches of snow in April, believe that. As for just seeing snow falling from the sky, well, the Weather Service says the latest that happened was June 10th, back in 2008. As for the most snow ever measured in the month of April, more than 7 inches fell on April 6th, 1969.
A little scary when you think about some of those numbers and the fact that it could still snow as you look at the month of April and moving into the month of May. But to show you on the other side of the spectrum, this is hot days in April, okay? How hot can it get in this month? Well, if you look at the April 25th back in 1946, it got up to 92 degrees. These are all toward the end of April. Here's the 26th of April. Here's the 27th. This one's way back at 1898, but this one here is a little bit closer. You should look at 1987. And all of these temperatures showing the hottest day on 3 different days, and it gets up to 92 degrees. So it is possible toward the end of the month to see a temperature getting pretty close to that, even though we had the 82 last Monday. Now, what's going on right now and what's keeping our temperature from warming up, if you look at all these clouds coming in from the north, that's kind of a chill drill right along through here coming down into the valley. It stays with us for tonight and the same thing for early tomorrow. So here in the valley for now, it's dry. You see a few showers here to the north. And if you go a little further north, you'll see they're very speckled around the area, especially from some of the mountain locations. So we just kind of have to watch that. Some of the models are showing us about the middle of the day tomorrow, we could see a light passing shower. Let me show you this in the Futurecast. If I stop it about in the middle of the day, you'll see the shower right along through here. It's just isolated and scattered throughout most locations. Most mountain areas will be getting some light snow, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a lot. So as far as accumulation, maybe an inch in Stanley, but a lot less from McCall. And the same thing for Haley as far as snow accumulation out of that very small storm system to our north that's breaking up, which is really the backside of the storm that moved through this morning. So if you look at the 7 days, well, as we get up here toward Boise, it looks like a very nice weekend. In fact, Sunday, temperature gets all the way up to 74 degrees, and next week we're looking for a chance of a few showers, and again, it drops the temperatures down into the 50s.
All right, let's wrap up this Thursday with a look at some of your comments, like this one from Terry talking about the vaccination cards, whether or not we still need them around town. She says, well, if you plan on international travel, you better keep that vaccine card handy. A lot of people saying that. Outside of this country, you might need it to travel from country to country, but here in the U.S., not necessarily. But keep that in mind if you're doing some international travel. Thank you for the story of the condors. We need more stories about predatory avians. Stop using lead fishing gear and stop using lead bullets for hunting. Good points there. Summer in Idaho is July, August, and September. Juana says this, but yeah, would it be too much to ask if we just ease into it first? Have a nice, gentle spring, and then we hit summer in July, August, and September, which seems to drag on. Also, questions about the rooster tail. We're going to find out if that's going to be happening this year or not out at Lucky Peak. Tune in tomorrow. We'll see what we can find out. We'll see you then.